early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Having talked about the BRICS bloc and the de-dollarization move, and also looked at mining sector in Africa, it is time to go digital, looking at public digital infrastructure as key to sustainable development. You agree with me that this is the digital age, the time we'll hear about artificial intelligence and the likes. So if Africa is to catch up and perhaps move ahead of the world, that can only be going digital. So this morning, joining virtually is a digital expert, Seyi Akindeinde, who is the founder of Hyperspace Neutral AI. Good morning, Seyi.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Sorry, you may be hearing some background noise. I'm in Dubai for the GTEx conference. So, we are here for the exhibition and we're here with the Lagos State Ministry of Science, Innovation, Science and Technology. That's where I'm reaching you from this, afternoon.
I understand you're in Dubai. The last time you were on the show, you were in the US for a UN event, and now you're with Lagos State government in Dubai. So can I call you a digital crusader?
Well, we're trying to spread the message. We're trying to at least let people know that, technology is a change factor. It can bring development to, underserved communities. And it's a good thing that, and then we get to see what other people are doing, what other countries are doing, and how we can sort of bring it back home to implement, that's it.
Let's start from where you are right now before we bring it home, talking about in some developing and developed nations, because you're in Dubai and then you were in the US as well, but you're based in Nigeria. So yes, we can do all three: developing, developed, and underdeveloped nations when it comes to digital infrastructure. What is the ideal for development, for vibrant economic development?
It is, I think the fundamental thing for development, even as we are seeing here, is the internet. The internet has got to have a mainstay in Nigeria, in Africa. I think that's the base, that's the fundamental basis upon which we can actually build, digital services. And as we've seen here, even from getting to the airport, sometimes you don't even interact with a human being. Everything is digital. Everything is connected. You scan your, your passport, you get your ticket, you enter. You don't, there isn't a human interface. Even if there is a human interface, it's decreasing. So I think the fundamental thing that brings this whole, development and digitalization together is, I think what we need is fast connection to the internet. It helps in development. It helps in building, tying up a lot of those loose ends. So once we can solve that, then we can start to build solutions. We can start to look at problems that we are facing over there and build solutions to some of these challenges that we are facing. But I think the fundamental thing is internet penetration.
If we're talking about digital public infrastructure, we're looking at all of the networks, the infrastructure, and everything put together that enables a functioning society. You are in Dubai. What are some of the things you've noticed that helps the society flow seamlessly?
There's a whole lot here. There's a whole lot from, like I said, from getting to the airport, from the smart gates, from the smart cities, from everything is just put, like you can almost come here without just by yourself, and you don't even need to interact with them. They have apps for almost everything, to order, taxis, to order ride, to getting your tickets, even getting the, can see I'm wearing a badge. Everything is digital. You don't, I think it's sometimes when you're in this kind of places, that's when you see, where the world is going, what is happening. In fact, if probably there's time, some at some other time, because the event is ending, I can probably just take you around to see what is really happening. People are using even for security robots, some of these digital robots, they're not using the normal traditional security where somebody has to scan you. Everything, you walk through your biometrics. Once it's scanned, everything about you shows, your airline, your ticket, your hotel, so those are the things that we are seeing here, that a lot of things are now becoming digital, and they're de-emphasizing the human. So the humans are there just to manage the infrastructure, just in case maybe there are issues here and there. But at the end of the day, everything is going digital, from public services, like you said, digital public infrastructure. Funnily enough, we with the Lagos State Ministry of Innovation, Science and Technology, and being a government entity, we're actually in the government section of the pavilion, so we can see what the Dubai government is doing. The Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Water, Ministry of Water Resources, Ministry of the police, the military. Everything is technologically driven, based on the digital public infrastructure, and everything is connected to the identity and access management, like biometrics, because with that you can offer all sorts of services, and that's what is happening here.
All right, now, so let's come to Lagos. Good enough, you were in Dubai with Lagos State government. So let's look at some of the things that Lagos State has done with technology, and some areas that perhaps need to be upgraded. So with the launch of the Blue Rail and then the Red Rail lines, we saw that even for the BRT buses, you don't need to carry cash. So all you need to have is your carry card, and then you fund it. You can do transportation without necessarily carrying cash. So that checked the issue of, maybe some staff could do very funny things, give people tickets that perhaps they've made by themselves. Because we've seen in some other states where government has a transport line, but it's run aground because of sharp practices. So that's taken care of by Lagos State government. I want to say kudos to them. But we also see in other aspects that in Nigeria, not just Lagos, it seemed like the country hasn't quite caught up with what is obtainable. So someone choose to not obey traffic rules, and you have the traffic wardens there. They choose to chase after the person. Sometimes it leads to an accident, and you're wondering, can't we automate these things? I mean, what's the driver's license for? What's your plate number for? Can't we have some digital experience here, so that if you flout traffic rules, they don't need to chase after you like, we're in a marketplace, touts, bring the touting kind of way of handling things into it. Could you speak to that using digital infrastructure? How can we sanitize this society?
Absolutely. And you are very, 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 very correct in what you have said. And what you will say is that technology can play a key role in that. Obviously, I mean, if you come to a society like this as well, you see that a lot of what you have said is controlled by technology. And the problem I think we have is a fundamental one in Nigeria, because there are issues, there are things that we're still battling with, that I see that a lot of these other countries are not battling with. So take, for instance, you said that when somebody flouts the traffic law, instead of having human beings and the last mile officials chase, there should be technology in place that, like, there are sensors here where if you flout the law, there are cameras positioned every single there are cameras attached to every single traffic light, such that if you go, it just takes your your plate number, and then you just receive an email or a text message that, well, this is the fine you are going to pay. They show you the time of the day that you flouted the law, the registration of the car number, the car itself, and the location where you. So you cannot dispute a lot of these things. You just simply walk into the online. There's an app as well. You pay your fine, and that's it. And if you don't pay, they restrict your driver's license, or you get fined for it or something like that. So we need that in Nigeria. But you see, one of the challenges you see is that even if the government is trying to put some of these things, I think they need to secure this infrastructure, because you find out that if you put a camera there, by the following day, maybe someone has gone in there to steal the camera, or not or put it from there, and then it's gone, or they block it, or they vandalize it, and you can't continue. We can continue in that. So those are some of the challenges we're facing. Number two issue is that of power. You need power to power a lot of these things, especially overnight, when people are asleep and all that. You need power, and if there's no power to it, it cannot do a lot of. So we still need to provide that basic infrastructure, power, energy, to so that it is 24 hours, and then it does as it's supposed to do. And obviously, you also need the back end. You need the infrastructure at the back end. You need the services. When you take a plate number of a car, it transmits it to the back end using, again, internet infrastructure. So you need to provide adequate 24 hours internet infrastructure to be able to transmit this thing and processing it. So there's a lot that we still need to put over here, because they have the baseline has already been taken care of. There's power, there's water, there is the infrastructure is there. So all they're just building is the solutions that they need on top. In fact, over here, what we've seen is that technology plays a key role. I give you a typical example. I was coming in this morning in a car, the way even the traffic light works, unlike the manual way it works in our country, Nigeria, where it counts down and it doesn't matter the time of day, you get 90 seconds. Here, there's a sensor that senses, the positioning of a car. So if it doesn't see, once your car is not there, it knows that there's no traffic coming from this side. So it decides to pass the other. So everything is, digitally enabled, sensor-based. And it's so beautiful to look at, but we just keep wondering why we cannot have this in our country. I think we need to have a holistic policy driven from top down, and then provide basic, amenities. Like I said, provide power, provide, internet infrastructure. And once you have all these things, and then you now put rules and laws in place to say, if you are caught vandalizing these things, you go to jail. And once people know that you do that, that's it. So I think that's what we need to do. If we can actually, sort all those things out, this digital public infrastructure will work, even from things. And yes, we've even seen it even with our passports. You see, now you can't forge our passports again now, because inside the passport, our passport is almost digital now. Once you bring it, they don't even check the name on the passport. There's a chip inside of the passport. You just scan it, and it brings out everything about you, your biometric features, your everything about you. So up to the extent that once you use some of these digital smart gates, they don't even need to stamp your passport to know that you are in the country. Those are the kind of things that we can do, and we can do it if there is a will. And I think government, should sort of also. Like I said, we're also here with Lagos State. The Lagos State Deputy Governor was also has been around as well, and is fielding questions from professionals, and even getting feedback on what they can do better, to provide some of these services to the teeming population in Lagos.
I'm believing that when you embark on trips like this, whether it's to the UN event or to a Dubai event for technology, you want to see what's happening in other parts of the world, whereas the world got into right now, so that you can also catch up, you can upgrade. So let's bring it back home now. If you look at what is going on in terms of the technology race, I like to put it that way. There is AI, artificial intelligence, and it's just kind of coming slowly into Africa or into Nigeria, and the embrace is quite slow as well. So if you look at what is happening in other parts of the world, they've gone far ahead. That goes to show that there is a digital divide. How can that divide be bridged? Is the approach to technology, to technology education, Is it a wrong one? Are we using a wrong model? And so it's always a catch-up game.
Absolutely. And you are, once again, very correct. One of the things that we see that is lacking sorely is the digital illiteracy. People may be literate in other aspects, but they are digitally illiterate, such that a lot of these things you need to get up to speed with. So we need to get people up to speed with technology. You mentioned AI. Over here, there's AI, there's XR, there's VR, there's augmented reality, extended reality, virtual reality. There's all this spatial technology. In fact, very soon we're going to be talking about quantum computing. There's cyber security. There is Web3, blockchain. So a lot of these things, and they are coming thick and fast, such that before you even catch up with one, another one has come up. Here there are all sorts of implementations of chips and identity management, biometric, different implementations of all these things. The problem we have is that of education and literacy level of our people, when we're still even struggling with even the basics. Like, I mean, by now, I think very soon AI is going to be infused everywhere, because even from what we're seeing at the conference here, we're saying that a lot of even governments, and I think that the challenge is also, if from my opinion, I think the challenge is also cultural, which is why people don't often adopt technology, because in Nigeria, in Lagos, we think that when a new piece of technology comes in, it comes to take jobs. So, for instance, now, if you go to the Nigeria airport and you are coming, you see a lot of people in customs still manually checking bags, still manually asking questions. You go to immigration, they're still manually checking your passport, your ticket, and all that. Now, if you bring in a piece of technology that says, look, we're going to automate everything such that the experience for a traveler will be very seamless. You're going through smart gates, you're going through smart security. The truth is, people are going to say, oh, but what is going to happen to the people, that are currently working in those units? And because technology has a way of sort of it's sort of taking jobs away, if I may say that. So that's the challenge. So when you bring in this technology, the people in charge now don't want to implement it, or the people who are supposed to implement it will think, oh, if it's going to take away the jobs, why do I need to bring in the technology? What's going to happen to the people? Forgetting that when you bring in new pieces of technology, there are still upskilling processes that need to be done. People need to operate the technology. People need to manage the technology. People need to, maintain the technology. Then they can upskill to maintaining, this equipment. But what we've seen is that because a lot of people have spent years doing the same thing, it becomes very hard for them to upskill, and then instead of using the technology, they don't use it. So that's the challenge we're having. There needs to be a reorientation, a change of mindset in a lot of these things. And I think once we do that and we upskill, and then even from primary, secondary to university level, we need to start infusing technology, especially AI. What we have seen here is there's almost no industry that AI is not in. From whatever the industry, whatever the vertical, whatever the government agency, they are using AI to power a lot of the biometrics we see. When you get to the airport, the camera that scans you automatically scans you, brings out your details just from from scanning you. We can implement those kinds of technologies as well, and they are all mainstream here. So I think a lot of it has to be education based. We have to be digitally literate, and people have to know that when we implement technology, yes, it will take away some mundane jobs, but it will also create newer jobs or newer opportunities for people to key into.
If you recall, during the COVID-19 pandemic, that was about the first time that people knew you could have e-learning. And we saw a lot of people move that way. Some teachers, coaches began to pass on knowledge using virtual means. Aside that, are there other ways that technology has permeated the educational sector that we need to know about?
Oh, yes. There are quite a number of ways that we can leverage technology. Like you said, it was the COVID-19 that sort of opened up our eyes to what the internet could do. I mean, I'm sure without COVID, a lot of people would probably have argued that people could not adequately receive education over the internet. Yes, there are quite a number of ways that we can use that. But you see, at the end of the day, you still need the infrastructure. And then even on the personal end too, a lot of these devices are not really cheap. So the kind of devices that you would need to access some of these educational resources are not cheap. So you need a tablet, you need a smartphone, and with what is happening in the market now, a lot of these things are not so cheap to come by now. But this is where, you know, maybe something like government, public-private sector can come in, where government can sort of subsidize these things, especially for the underserved communities. The internet is the primary resource. So instead of having maybe live, you know, classes, you could actually have recorded classes where you could play these things and then they have access to it and then get it on their devices and watch, you know, and learn at their own time. Then you can create some kind of maybe using a web board or like some kind of chat application to ask questions, or, you know, maybe create a group. So those are some of the things that we can do. But again, it comes down to the economic power of a typical, you know, Nigerian, which is also what we are talking to government about here, that government can have this, you know, partnership with the private sector where they can subsidize the cost of, you know, the internet, they can subsidize the cost of the materials in terms of, you know, smart devices to use to access it. Because at the end of the day, these resources are there. And then now with AI is even now making things a lot easier now, where, you know, before now you find out that, you know, language has been a barrier to education. Now with AI and the translation, on the flight translation services, there are apps now that you can put on your phone, and just like we are having a Zoom meeting here, you could literally be having a training session, you know, conducted where somebody will be speaking in whatever language, and on your mobile phone, you'll be hearing it in the language that you understand. So I can be in, you know, Dubai here and be delivering a lecture to somebody who is in Kaduna or Kano or, you know, Enugu in English, and they will be hearing, the person in Enugu will be hearing it in Igbo, the person in Kaduna will be hearing it in Hausa, and then they would also understand it. And when they send their feedback, I would also be able to get that. So those are some of the ways that technology can be used. You know, AI is disrupting a lot of, you know, verticals, including, you know, education. But we need to bring it home. We need to localize it. I mean, we had a meeting too with the deputy governor where he even told us certain challenges that, you know, they are having within the states, and how, you know, AI and technology can help them solve these things. And we put some solutions on the table. And I think if those solutions are implemented by government, it will also help, you know, in education dissemination in Nigeria.
If we're talking about digital infrastructure for sustainable development, looking critically at some of the challenges that Nigeria has, not just Lagos. We're talking about climate change effect. We're talking about poverty and some other issues, food scarcity. In what area can we channel digital means, technology, to solve these problems, and not just be consumers of some technology that really does not address some of the critical issues or challenges that the country is faced with?
Yes, in fact, one of the major, you know, talking points here is, like you said, climate change and how AI itself can be used in solving that. Now, you find out that traditionally, you know, climate has to do with a lot of data. And the problem is that these data sets are not structured. They are not in a structured format where you can analyze. Now, with AI and the generative AI and large language models, you could actually put it to use. You could have all these data. I mean, like we have, if you go to the, I think the Ministry of, Oceanography or something, I'm sure they probably have a lot of data on climate, on, you know, a lot of these things. But those, you know, the data, we're not using it for any we're not using it to make any intelligent decision. So what AI has come to do now is we can actually get this data into AI and then using natural language to sort of, you know, ask it what, you know, what maybe even predict what could happen in future, you know, stages, in future years to come. So those are the kind of things that we can do. But again, it comes down to the capacity, you know, of people, the capacity development, the knowledge base of the people that are going to operate this thing. There needs to be general people have to shift from the mindset of, oh, technology is going to take my job, technology is going to come and replace me. to things like, look, how can I use this technology to solve some of these problems that I'm facing? There are all sorts. We are here, also talking about using Web3 and blockchain for identity and access management. Everything is tied to identity. In fact, anywhere you go, everything is tied to identity. Your biometrics. So how can we leverage these technologies that are there, that are mainstream, to bring it home and use it to solve our problem? Not everything is cut and paste. Yes, there are some things that may work here, as I'm here in Dubai. There's some things that will probably work in the US. But when we bring it back home, we find out that because of our own cultural nuances, ideologies, they may not really work that way. So we can amend and tune the technology to fit our own purpose. That's the essence of technology, to solve problems that you have. It's not just to copy and paste, and then we find out that it doesn't work. We can use that. So for identity, and we already have that. I mean, NIN, BVN, we can harness the NIN and BVN and make it more by using it for more things, rather than, every time we want to open another account, you ask us for the same, you are having multiple identities. Since we have that, that can be tied into so many things, such that if I want to say pay for my for electricity or pay, for health insurance, I don't need to be filling forms. All I do is I just provide my NIN and everything is automatically populated, and they just give me the amount and I pay using an app. So that some of the things that technology can help us solve, back home in Nigeria. But again, it takes the will, of the people to enable these things to work. So sometimes it's not just about the technology, it's about the human nature, it's about the human will to get, this thing out there. And I think that's what we need to change, the mindset of the people.
Okay, so let's assume that the mindset of the people have been changed or are being changed, because they also need this technology. They need this move to what the new world is operating on now. While you were talking, you made mention of infrastructure severally while responding to some questions that I've asked earlier. And let's look at the infrastructure to support all of this change. If you look at what the banking sector has done, and with the coming of fintech, what they've been able to do for those in the rural areas, it's quite commendable. So some banks would not have been able to go to certain areas to set up a branch, maybe because it would not be really profitable for them to move an entire branch there. But with the mobile money operators, banking services have got into certain areas. If we look at the infrastructure, you mentioned the cost implications. Some of these gadgets, machines and all, are very expensive in this time. Same with infrastructure. The telecommunication companies are groaning, and we need that to support this technology. If we're going to go digital, of course, we can rule out the role of the communication companies. Now, in what way can we bring this down to those in the local areas, make it widespread, but maybe not so expensive? Is there a way to cut costs here while also achieving the goal?
Yes, there is a way to cut costs, and that again boils down to the government policy. We have to be, we have to have a digital first government policy. That means that every policy that government is going to institute, it has to have, the number one thing they have to consider is the digital component of it, not later. One thing we find out here is that when policies are made, it's usually tailored towards the norm, what is currently existing, such that when they now want to make it about the digital, it's always too late. But if you make it a digital first policy, that means that as a policy is being enacted, you think about what is the digital component. Now, if you think about that first, you find out that the only thing that, for you to even think about that first, you first need to get that infrastructure to everybody. And this is where, again, government needs to be talking with the private telecommunications providers, the internet service providers, the people that build this. That's the good thing, is that at least one state is here, Lagos State is here. Probably more states need to also come, because we need the last mile connection. That means that the connection from a base station to somebody's estate, somebody's house. Because that's the only. If I'm here now, there is almost no place you go to that you do not have Wi-Fi connected, and you don't have to pay. It is free. If you are in every mall, every street corner, every location here has internet. It is enabled. In fact, someone as if they are begging you to use the internet, and it is at no cost. It is at absolutely no cost, and it is enabled by, I think obviously it is being subsidized by the government. So the people providing the wireless, Wi-Fi services, you are everywhere. You're on the bus, you have internet. You're in the cab, you have internet. You're in the, street corner buying, kiosk, you have internet. So if we have that, once you are able to solve that, it's a bit like building. It's a bit like building the road. For instance, once you can build roads with multiple lanes and highways, then you can now start to have, things built that will ply the road. So you can have cars, you can have trucks, you can have lorries, you can have bicycles, you can have motorcycles. So that road for digital is that platform, that internet, and this is where government needs to play a key role. They need to have, that mixing, that collaboration with the ISPs and the telecom providers to see how they can, like you said, bring down the cost to something that is almost as if, maybe something that is very, very minimal for people, if not even free. And then somehow, maybe a CSR, or maybe give incentives, maybe tax incentives to some of these telcos and ISPs to say, if you're able to provide free internet access here, maybe you will not pay tax for, or you pay, a reduced amount of tax, and we consider that as CSR. Without that, we're going to really, it's going to be a struggle for Nigeria to get to the next level, especially as if you see that a lot of the things that are advanced, you can't use AI without the internet. You can't use Web3 without the internet. You can't use XR, VR without the internet. You need connectivity. Everything is, we're talking about Internet of Things. That means that everything we use, from our fridges to, in fact, there are cars here that you can start via the internet. People are fixing, all these electric vehicles, self-driving cars over the internet, So you need that, and without that infrastructure, I'm sorry, every other thing will fail into complete insignificance. So we need the government policies, we need the laws, the lawmakers, and good enough. A lot of them are also here. They are seeing things happen, as it is in other parts of the world. And I see that they're all taking notes as well. Hopefully, when they get back, they can sit down and be able to sort of formulate an overarching policy that will enable us to be a digital first nation. And we started with our passport. Hopefully, we can continue, in that state.
From after events like this, setting up one hub, call it whatever name, maybe tech hub, tech space somewhere, for very young people to have access to digital infrastructure and digital knowledge. And they're just in there, maybe nothing much coming out of it, aside the fact that they can have access to it. Some developing apps, oh yes. But when you go to some other sectors, you don't find that duplicity of digital infrastructure and equipment in that area. I'll give you an instance. So recently, the Central Bank of Nigeria came up with a policy that would automate forex trading in Nigeria. It's going to commence in December 1. And while we had a conversation with a member of the Association of Bureau de Change Operators, now one concern he had was the equipment for this transition. He was bothered how his members will be trained and how they will be equipped for this change. So how do we move from, after events like this, coming up to set up one hub, to going to strategically place this infrastructure in places where they're very much needed and they will lead to economic transformation?
Fantastic point you have said there. I think we need patient capital. I think in Africa, in Nigeria, we're used to investing something today and trying to reap the rewards tomorrow. And what I've seen in other parts of the world over the last couple of months is that a lot of people are willing to invest and have, they have patient capital. So that means that capital that, look, you invest and you may not have the returns for another 2 decades, but and again, it comes down to mindsets, So is somebody ready? Is an entrepreneur ready? Is an investor ready? Is a financier ready to bring this equipment, all these things you're saying, this infrastructure, are they ready to pump money into it and continue to pump money into, this field until, they get that critical mass and then they start reaping their benefits. So that's the thing we need. Also, government also needs to do that. They need to set the ball in motion for even somebody who has the patient capital to say, I can wait for 20 years, but I need to know that the laws, I need to know that the policies, I need to know that another, government will not come in, maybe from another party, and then they reverse everything, and I lose my investment. So if that policy is there, it will guarantee. I was at the event where the deputy governor spoke to foreign investors to bring investments to Lagos State. I was also at the NITDA, the DG of NITDA spoke to foreign investors to come and invest in technology in Nigeria. And the key thing that people keep asking is, okay, yes, even if we come, do we have the policy to guarantee our investment? Do we have the policies there to protect our investment? So they want to do these things. They want to, but they are thinking, especially even in terms of, regulation, in terms of even the currency itself. So if they bring it, are they sure that in 10 years' time, the currency will not have so they need these guarantees. This is what the Dubai and US and all these other countries are giving investors. They are protecting their investments and they are guaranteeing them, and they are even giving them some kind of incentives. For here, if you invest in the economy of Dubai, sometimes they even give you a golden visa. They give you residency. So they are incentivizing a lot of these things. There's security, there's protection, there are laws, and so it helps in fueling, development, and which is what I think we need to provide for investors in Nigeria to bring it to that critical mass, as you have said. Like if you can't just implement, bring in the technology, and you want people to implement, and then you don't give them something, to invest in. So I think that's what the government can do, and I'm also happy that they are all here. They're all represented here one way or the other, and they are all, taking notes. And some of them are saying, okay, we'll get back and we'll try to look at this policy, but it needs to be, a top-down thing, and that's the only way we can bring this technology to the end user. That's the only way we can. And then obviously, once you do this, then the literacy level needs to increase as well. The digital literacy level needs to come up above board. Once we have that, there'll be a lot of incentives for people to go into it. There's so many people that you don't even have to go to university these days to be a techno whiz kid. Once you can, you have access to a computer, you have access to the internet, you can teach yourself how to code. And with AI now, you can do then learn, and it is making a lot of things easier. I think that's what we need in Nigeria at the moment.
Well, one very striking thing that you said, Seyi, is patience capital. So as a business person, alongside other capital that you get your patience capital. Because there's certain business people want to go into, but they look at it, the time for the return on investment is quite long, and they say, no, that's not for me. Thank you so much, Seyi Akindeinde, for being a guest today on the show. I wish you a pleasant experience at the event that you're attending. What's the name of the event again, please?
It's GTech Dubai. It's it's the biggest technology event in the world, and it brings companies from all over the world, to come and exhibit, talk about products, and then there are events on, different things that you get to listen, and there are governments here, there are, big businesses, in fact, all the top businesses, financial institutions. Sorry, excuse me. And so it's really big. If I can just show you, around to see, what the background is. It's really, let me just walk you through, see a few things. And this is the Lagos. Oh, sorry. This is the Lagos State. You can see. This is Lagos State, that's why we are here under the auspices of Lagos State, and the governor, the deputy governor is also around, and there are all sorts of, companies here. You can see this is the immigration of Dubai, with all the technology behind me that they are exhibiting. They are, and this is a Lagos State representative. You can just, Akim, you're live.
Hello. Live from Dubai.
So this is SOUQ News TV. And we've been talking about digital public infrastructure. So I understand the Lagos State government is present at this event, looking at new technologies that will help transform Lagos and by extension Nigeria.
So, yeah. Asking, sorry, ask the question again. Is this live? Yes, it's live. Oh,
it is not a question. I'm trying to bring you up to speed on what the conversation has been about. But this is my question. As Lagos State government is there, it is the hope of every Nigerian that when they see government at events like this, so the take home would be, oh, there's a new change that's going to impact people. Are there certain things that specifically Lagos State government is looking to come back home with from this event that you could say the people should begin to expect a change in this area after this event?
Oh, all right. Thank you very much for the question. Of course, there's a lot of things that we expect. Particularly what we've done as a government is to bring different startups, with very great performance in the ecosystem. So for us, it's about bringing the startups that are doing really well in Lagos down here to Dubai to help them facilitate the right networks, the right partnerships, and also perhaps, more funding for their companies. So for us, we just want to create, value chain that enables our startups and companies to do well. So yes, that's what we want from it.
All right, Seyi, we'll find more time to talk about this, maybe after you return from this trip.
Yes, most definitely. Most definitely. Most definitely. Thank you very much for having me.
And please take this message to other Nigerian government officials that are there. So we want to see that is not just writing on pads, but when they come, these technologies that they've seen being used some of them will be operational in Nigeria and will be deployed to improve in the lives of people. So it's not a case as we've seen maybe with the Beavers machine for elections where we have some of this new technology, but we still revert to manual. I hope you get the message, Seyi.
Yes, in fact, that's one of the things that Lagos State is trying to do. We met with the deputy governor and he wants to, in fact, from land to healthcare to, energy, electricity, everything, they are looking at digitalizing and they are forming partnerships with local and international companies.
Thanks so much. I'm going to let you go now and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's a wrap on the show, but there is one thing that you can take away from here if you didn't learn anything: patience, capital, and know also where the world is turning to. The world can be moving the digital way, and you're saying, well, what happened to the old ways? Maybe you could improve the old ways and do something better to improve your economy, even as we've seen that the government of Lagos State and the government of Nigeria is at a conference trying to see how other societies have improved daily life and daily experience for their citizens. Do not be one of those who frustrates such move when eventually it begins to happen. You can get your mind to change to the new ways of doing things, because they say the only constant thing in life is change. I am Blessing Aju. Market Insight comes up here on this channel at 11, and you can follow us on our social media platforms at SOUQ News TV on Facebook, Instagram, X. Be sure to leave a comment. The show continues tomorrow, 8 a.m. West African time. Do enjoy your day.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.